The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training ground as Sergeant Jake Morrison adjusted his scope for the third time. The target sat 800 meters away, a small black circle barely visible to the naked eye. Around him, the elite marksman squad known as the Iron Wolves prepared for their monthly qualification test. "Another perfect day to show off," muttered Corporal Danny Chen, checking his rifle's bolt action. The 24-year-old sniper had earned his spot on the team after hitting 19 out of 20 targets during his entrance exam. "Weather's calm, winds steady. Should be easy shots today." Morrison nodded, his weathered face showing the confidence of a man who had never missed a qualification target in 8 years. The squad leader had seen combat in 3 different theaters and trained dozens of snipers. His reputation preceded him wherever the Iron Wolves were stationed. "Remember, gentlemen," Morrison announced to his team of 12 elite marksmen, "today's test includes the impossible shot. Target at 1,200 meters, crosswind at 15 miles per hour, elevation change of 300 feet. He paused, scanning the faces of his men. "In my entire career, I've never seen anyone make that shot. Hell, I'm not even sure it's physically possible." The squad members exchanged glances. They had heard rumors about the impossible shot for months. Command had added it to their qualification test as a challenge, knowing full well that failure was expected. The shot required mathematical precision beyond normal human capability, accounting for bullet drop, wind drift, and atmospheric pressure changes that most computers struggled to calculate accurately. Private First Class Rodriguez raised his hand. "Sergeant, what happens if someone actually makes the shot?" Morrison chuckled. "Rodriguez, if anyone on this team makes that shot, I'll personally recommend them for advanced sniper school and a medal. But don't hold your breath. The physics just don't work in our favor." As the squad prepared their equipment, a small figure approached from the direction of the base headquarters. Walking with quiet confidence was a young woman wearing standard military fatigues, her blonde hair pulled back in regulation style. She carried a rifle case that looked almost too heavy for her slight frame. "Who's the new recruit?" Chen whispered to his teammate, watching the woman approach their group. "Beats me," replied Staff Sergeant Williams, a veteran sniper with 6 years in the Iron Wolves. "Maybe she's here to observe or deliver a message from command." The woman stopped 10 feet away from the group and set down her rifle case. "Excuse me, Sergeant Morrison?" Morrison turned, surprised by the soft voice. "Yes, miss. Can I help you?" "I'm here for qualification testing. Command sent me to join today's session." She pulled out official orders from her pocket. "Private Emma Walsh, reporting for marksman evaluation." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Morrison took the papers and read them carefully, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. The orders were legitimate, signed by Colonel Henderson himself. "Private Walsh," Morrison said slowly, "I think there's been some mistake. This is advanced marksman qualification. We're the Iron Wolves, the base's elite sniper unit. Our entrance requirements include prior military experience, expert marksman classification, and physical fitness standards that..." He paused, looking at the young woman who couldn't weigh more than 120 pounds. "Sergeant, my orders are clear. I'm here to qualify for your team." Emma's voice remained steady and respectful, but there was something in her eyes that made Morrison hesitate. Chen stepped forward, unable to hide his skepticism. "Look, miss. Private Walsh. No offense, but do you understand what we do here? We're not teaching basic rifle safety. Some of these guys have been shooting competitively since they were kids. Williams there holds 3 base records for long-distance accuracy." Emma nodded politely. "I understand this is an elite unit, Corporal. I'm ready to begin whenever you are." The squad members looked at each other with barely concealed amusement. Morrison felt caught between following orders and protecting a young soldier from obvious failure. The qualification test was designed to challenge experienced marksmen. Someone without proper training could be injured by the powerful rifles they used, not to mention the embarrassment of failing spectacularly in front of the base's best shooters. "Private Walsh," Morrison said carefully, "these tests start with shots at 300 meters and work up to 800 meters. The rifles we use have significant recoil." "Have you fired anything larger than an M16? "I've had some experience with various weapon systems, Sergeant." Emma opened her rifle case, revealing a weapon that made several squad members whistle in appreciation. Inside the case lay a custom-built precision rifle that looked like it cost more than most cars. The scope alone was military-grade equipment typically reserved for special operations units. The weapon showed signs of careful maintenance and frequent use. "Where did you get that rifle, Private?" Williams asked, his skepticism replaced by curiosity. "It belonged to my father," Emma replied simply, lifting the weapon with practiced ease. "He taught me to shoot when I was young." Morrison watched her handle the rifle. Her movements were fluid and confident, showing none of the hesitation he expected from an inexperienced shooter. She loaded a magazine and worked the bolt action like someone who had performed the motion thousands of times. "All right, Private Walsh. We'll start you with the basic qualifications. If you pass those, we'll move forward." Morrison gestured toward the firing line. "First target is 300 meters. You need to place 5 shots within a 6-inch circle. Wind is calm, so there shouldn't be any complications." The squad gathered behind the firing line to watch. Morrison expected the young woman to struggle with the rifle's weight and recoil. Most new shooters needed time to adjust to precision weapons, and even experienced soldiers sometimes found their first Iron Wolves qualification challenging. Emma approached the firing line with quiet focus. She lay prone, adjusted her position slightly, and peered through her scope. For several seconds, she remained perfectly still, controlling her breathing in the manner of a trained marksman. The first shot rang out across the training ground. Through binoculars, Morrison watched the target 300 meters downrange. A small hole appeared dead center in the black circle. "Good shot," Morrison called out. 4 more to go. The second shot followed within 10 seconds. Another perfect center hit. By the third shot, the squad had stopped talking among themselves. The fourth and fifth shots landed so close to the first 3 that they formed a single ragged hole in the exact center of the target. Morrison lowered his binoculars slowly. In 12 years of training snipers, he had never seen 5 shots grouped so tightly at 300 meters. Even his best marksmen usually had some variation in their shot placement. "Outstanding shooting, Private," he said, trying to hide his surprise. "Ready for 500 meters?" Emma simply nodded and adjusted her position. The 500-meter target required greater precision and skill in reading wind conditions. Most qualified marksmen could hit the target consistently, but perfect accuracy was rare. Again, 5 shots rang out in quick succession. Again, the shots grouped in a pattern so tight that the target looked like it had been hit by a single, perfectly placed bullet. The squad had fallen completely silent. Chen found himself checking and rechecking the target through his spotting scope, unable to believe what he was seeing. Rodriguez whispered something to Williams about beginner's luck, but his voice lacked conviction. 700 meters, Morrison announced, his voice steady despite his growing amazement. The 700-meter target separated good shooters from exceptional ones. Environmental factors became critical at that distance, and even slight errors in calculation resulted in missed shots. Emma made subtle adjustments to her scope, accounting for the increased distance. She spent slightly longer aiming, but her shots remained consistent. 5 bullets, 5 perfect hits, grouped so closely that they appeared to be a single impact point. Morrison walked over to where Emma lay behind her rifle. "Private Walsh, where exactly did you learn to shoot?" "My father was military, Sergeant. He believed in thorough training." Emma's answer revealed nothing while technically answering the question. "What was your father's specialization?" "Long-range reconnaissance, Sergeant." Morrison felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together. Long-range reconnaissance often meant sniper training, sometimes at levels beyond what regular military units received. If Emma's father had been special operations, it would explain her unusual skill level. "All right, team," Morrison announced to his squad. "We move to 800 meters. This is where things get serious." The 800-meter qualification separated the Iron Wolves from regular marksmen. Wind became a significant factor, requiring shooters to calculate drift and hold off target to compensate. Bullet drop required precise elevation adjustments, and atmospheric conditions affected trajectory in subtle but important ways. Morrison watched Emma prepare for the longer shot. She pulled out a small notebook and spent several minutes writing calculations, checking wind flags, and observing atmospheric conditions. Her preparation was methodical and thorough, showing knowledge that typically came from years of training. When she finally settled behind her rifle, the entire squad watched in complete silence. The first shot at 800 meters took longer to reach the target, allowing time for wind to affect the bullet's path. Through their scopes, the squad watched Emma's shot impact dead center. 4 more perfect hits followed. By the time she finished the 800-meter qualification, Morrison realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. In 8 years of leading the Iron Wolves, he had never seen shooting of this caliber. "Private Walsh," he said quietly, "you've just set a new base record for qualification scoring. Perfect marks at all distances." He paused, studying her calm expression. "There's one more test. The impossible shot I mentioned earlier. 1,200 meters, significant crosswind, elevated position. Nobody has ever made this shot." Emma looked downrange toward the distant target, barely visible even through high-powered scopes. "I'd like to try, Sergeant." The squad gathered their equipment and moved to the elevated firing position. The impossible shot required them to fire from a platform 30 feet above the target area, adding complexity to an already difficult challenge. The target at 1,200 meters looked like a tiny dot in the distance. Morrison set up his spotting scope while Emma prepared her rifle. The wind had picked up slightly, creating additional challenges for the long-range shot. Atmospheric conditions were changing as morning heated into afternoon, creating updrafts and thermal variations that would affect bullet trajectory. "Private, the mathematics on this shot are extremely complex," Morrison explained. "Bullet drop at this distance is measured in feet, not inches. Wind drift can push the shot several feet off target. The elevation change adds another variable that most shooters can't calculate accurately." Emma nodded, pulling out her notebook again. For nearly 10 minutes, she worked through calculations, occasionally checking wind indicators and making adjustments to her scope. The squad watched her preparation with growing respect, recognizing the thoroughness of a serious marksman. "Whenever you're ready, Private," Morrison said through his spotting scope. Emma settled behind her rifle and began the careful process of aiming. Through the scope, the target appeared as a small black dot surrounded by empty space. Any error in calculation or execution would result in a complete miss. The shot, when it came, surprised everyone. The rifle's report echoed across the training ground, and then, silence followed as they waited for the bullet to travel the enormous distance to the target. Morrison kept his eye pressed to the spotting scope, scanning the target area for any sign of impact. Seconds passed without any visible result. "Miss," he announced finally. No impact visible on target or surrounding area. Emma remained behind her rifle, perfectly still. "Sergeant, could you check the target more carefully?" Morrison adjusted his scope's focus and examined every inch of the target. The black circle showed no sign of bullet impact. The white background around it was unmarked. He was about to confirm the miss when something caught his attention. In the exact center of the black circle was a hole so perfectly placed that it was nearly invisible against the dark background. Morrison adjusted his scope's magnification to maximum power and felt his breath catch. The bullet had struck dead center, creating a hole so precise that it was camouflaged by the target's black circle. The shot was mathematically perfect, accounting for every variable with accuracy that seemed impossible. "Jesus Christ," Morrison whispered, then caught himself. "Private Walsh, you just made the impossible shot." Behind him, the entire Iron Wolf squad stood in stunned silence. Chen lowered his binoculars with an expression of disbelief. Williams shook his head slowly, unable to process what he had witnessed. "How?" Rodriguez asked quietly. "How is that even possible?" Morrison turned to look at Emma, who was carefully securing her rifle. The young woman who had walked onto their training ground that morning was clearly not what any of them had assumed. "Private Walsh," Morrison said formally, "I believe we need to have a conversation with command about your assignment to this unit." Emma stood and shouldered her rifle case. "Thank you for the opportunity to qualify, Sergeant. I look forward to working with the Iron Wolves." As she walked away toward base headquarters, the squad remained on the firing line, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Morrison knew that word of this shooting would spread quickly through the base. The impossible shot that nobody could make had been executed with casual precision by someone who looked like she belonged in a college classroom rather than an elite military unit. "Sergeant," Chen said slowly, "I think we just met someone very special." Morrison nodded, still staring at the distant target where Emma's perfect shot had landed. "Gentlemen, I think our team just got a lot more interesting." The afternoon sun climbed higher as the Iron Wolves packed their equipment, each man lost in thought about the morning's unprecedented demonstration of marksmanship. None of them could have imagined that their encounter with Emma Walsh was only the beginning of a story that would challenge everything they thought they knew about precision shooting and the quiet young woman who had just redefined what was possible. Colonel Henderson leaned back in his office chair, reading Morrison's report for the third time. The document detailed Emma Walsh's qualification scores with clinical precision, but the numbers seemed impossible. Perfect scores at every distance, including the theoretical challenge shot that was never intended to be completed successfully. Sergeant Morrison, Henderson said slowly, "You're telling me this Private Walsh achieved perfect marksmanship scores that exceed anything in our database?" "Yes, sir. I've been training marksmen for over a decade, and I've never seen shooting like that. The impossible shot wasn't just successful, it was perfect. Dead center, accounting for every environmental factor with mathematical precision." Henderson studied the young woman's military record spread across his desk. Emma Walsh's file was surprisingly thin for someone with such exceptional abilities. Basic training completion, standard fitness scores, no prior military experience listed. Her background investigation showed a quiet childhood in rural Montana with her father, a retired military veteran. What do we know about her father? Morrison shifted uncomfortably. That's where things get interesting, Colonel. I did some research after yesterday's qualification. Master Sergeant David Walsh served 22 years, mostly in classified special operations. His record is heavily redacted, but what's visible suggests long-range reconnaissance and specialized training programs. Special operations doesn't usually produce marksmen of this caliber by accident, Henderson mused. Did you speak with Private Walsh about her background? She's very respectful but reveals almost nothing, sir. Answers questions directly but provides minimal information. It's clear she was professionally trained, but she won't discuss specifics. Henderson picked up his phone and dialed base personnel. I need everything available on Master Sergeant David Walsh, retired. Priority request. He hung up and looked back at Morrison. How did your team react to her performance? Honestly, sir, they're still processing it. Chen has been checking his equipment, convinced there was some malfunction that made her shots look better than they actually were. Williams keeps talking about the physics being impossible. Rodriguez asked me if we're dealing with some kind of special forces evaluation. What do you think, Sergeant? Morrison considered his words carefully. Colonel, I think Private Walsh represents capabilities beyond normal military training. The precision she demonstrated suggests knowledge and skills that typically require years of specialized instruction. Her preparation was methodical, professional, and thorough. This wasn't luck or natural talent, this was expert-level training applied with remarkable precision. Henderson nodded slowly. I want her integrated into your team immediately. Full Iron Wolf status, complete access to advanced training programs. I also want you to document everything she does. If we're dealing with someone with unusual capabilities, we need to understand how those capabilities work. Understood, sir. Should I brief the team on any special considerations? Treat her like any other Iron Wolves member until proven otherwise. If she has special background or training, it will become apparent through normal operations. Morrison saluted and left the colonel's office, walking across the base toward the Iron Wolves compound. The team maintained their own facility separate from general infantry, complete with specialized training equipment, advanced weapon systems, and secure briefing areas. He found his squad in their equipment room, cleaning weapons and discussing the previous day's events. Conversation stopped when Morrison entered, and he could sense the tension in the air. All right, gentlemen. Private Walsh has been officially assigned to the Iron Wolves. She'll participate in all team activities, training exercises, and missions. I want professional behavior and full cooperation. Chen looked up from cleaning his rifle. Sergeant, with all due respect, we still don't understand what happened yesterday. Those shots defied physics as we understand them. Corporal Chen, what happened yesterday was expert marksmanship. Private Walsh clearly received training beyond what most of us have experienced. That makes her a valuable team member, not a mystery to solve. Williams raised his hand. Sarge, I've been shooting competitively for 15 years. I've seen Olympic-level marksmen, military champions, and special operations snipers. Nobody shoots like that. The precision was inhuman. Morrison studied his veteran sniper. Williams was not prone to exaggeration or emotional reactions. If he was questioning the fundamental nature of what they had witnessed, the situation was more complex than Morrison had initially realized. Staff Sergeant Williams, are you suggesting that Private Walsh's performance was somehow artificial or enhanced? I don't know what I'm suggesting, Sarge. I just know that what we saw yesterday doesn't match anything in my experience. The calculations alone should have taken longer than the time she spent aiming. Before Morrison could respond, Emma Walsh appeared in the equipment room doorway. She wore standard military fatigues and carried her rifle case, looking ready for whatever training the team had planned. Good morning, Sergeant Morrison. Reporting for duty with the Iron Wolves. The room fell silent as the team studied their newest member. In daylight, Emma appeared even younger than she had during qualification testing. Her slight frame and quiet demeanor contrasted sharply with the mental image most soldiers had of elite marksmen. Good morning, Private Walsh. Welcome to the team. Morrison gestured toward an empty equipment locker. Set up your gear there. We have training exercises this morning, followed by tactical scenarios this afternoon. Emma nodded and began organizing her equipment with efficient movements. The team watched as she unpacked not just her custom rifle, but also specialized scopes, range-finding equipment, and calculation tools that most of them had never seen. Private Walsh, Rodriguez said tentatively, "Where did you get that rangefinder?" That's military-grade equipment that usually requires special authorization. My father left me several pieces of equipment when he passed away last year. He believed in using the best tools available for precision work. Chen examined the device from a distance. That's a military laser rangefinder with atmospheric correction capabilities. Those cost about $20,000 and typically require security clearance to purchase. Emma continued unpacking without responding to the implied question. Morrison decided to move forward with training rather than continue the equipment discussion. All right, team. This morning we're working on team coordination exercises. Two-man teams, alternating shots at multiple targets, coordinated timing. Walsh, you're paired with Williams. Williams looked uncertain but nodded professionally. Yes, Sergeant. The team moved to an outdoor range configured with multiple target arrays at varying distances. The exercise required two marksmen to engage separate targets simultaneously, testing communication, timing, and mutual support capabilities. Morrison explained the scenario. Williams, you take targets 1, 3, and 5. Walsh, you have targets 2, 4, and 6. Targets will appear for 10 seconds each, in random order. You must communicate, coordinate, and ensure all targets are engaged successfully. The first round began with target number 1 appearing 400 meters downrange. Williams quickly acquired the target and prepared to fire, calling out his readiness. When target 2 appeared simultaneously, Emma smoothly engaged without any verbal communication. Both shots landed successfully, and targets 3 and 4 appeared. Again, perfect coordination resulted in successful engagement of both targets. The exercise continued through multiple rounds, with Williams growing increasingly impressed by Emma's ability to anticipate, communicate, and execute with flawless timing. Excellent work, Morrison announced when the exercise concluded. Perfect scores for both shooters, optimal coordination, no missed opportunities. Williams walked over to Emma with a new expression of respect. Private Walsh, your timing and communication were outstanding. How long have you been practicing team coordination exercises? I haven't had formal team training, Staff Sergeant. I tried to follow your lead and match your rhythm. Williams stared at her. You've never done team exercises before? But your coordination was perfect. You anticipated my movements and timing like we'd been working together for years. I watched how you approached each target and tried to complement your methodology. Morrison listened to this exchange with growing interest. If Emma was telling the truth, she had demonstrated advanced team coordination skills without any prior training or experience. Her ability to adapt and perform in real time suggested remarkable situational awareness and learning ability. Next exercise, Morrison announced. Moving target engagement. Targets will cross the range at various speeds and directions. Each marksman engages independently, focusing on accuracy under dynamic conditions. The moving target system activated, sending targets across the range at unpredictable speeds and angles. Chen went first, successfully hitting 3 out of 5 targets, a respectable performance for the challenging exercise. Rodriguez followed with similar results, managing to engage 4 out of 5 targets successfully. Williams, drawing on his extensive experience, hit all 5 targets with solid center shots. Emma stepped up to the firing line as the system reset. Morrison watched her preparation, noting the same methodical approach she had demonstrated during qualification testing. She calculated lead angles and movement patterns with apparent ease. When the targets began moving, Emma engaged each one with fluid precision. Her shots tracked the moving targets perfectly, leading them by exactly the right amount to ensure impact. All 5 targets stopped with center hits, but what impressed Morrison most was the speed of her engagement. Private Walsh, Morrison said after checking the results, "You engaged those targets faster than any marksman I've ever observed, yet maintained perfect accuracy. How did you calculate lead angles so quickly?" "Pattern recognition, Sergeant. Each target follows predictable physics. Once you understand the relationship between speed, angle, and distance, the calculations become automatic." Chen shook his head in disbelief. "Those calculations take most marksmen several seconds per target. You were firing almost as fast as the targets appeared." "I've had extensive practice with mathematical relationships, Corporal." Morrison decided to increase the challenge level. Advanced exercise. Multiple moving targets, overlapping courses, varying speeds. This is typically a team exercise, but I want to see individual performance. The advanced system activated 6 targets moving simultaneously in different directions and speeds. The exercise was designed to overwhelm individual marksmen, forcing them to prioritize and accept that some targets would escape engagement. Emma studied the target patterns for several seconds, then began engaging with systematic precision. She tracked multiple targets simultaneously, engaging them in an order that seemed random but proved to be mathematically optimal. Within 30 seconds, all 6 targets had been successfully engaged with center hits. The team stood in absolute silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. "That's impossible," Rodriguez whispered. "Nobody can track 6 independent moving targets and engage them all successfully." Williams walked downrange to examine the targets personally. When he returned, his expression was troubled. Every shot was perfect center mass. The targeting order was optimal for minimizing movement and maximizing accuracy. She solved a 6-variable targeting problem in real time. Morrison realized they had moved beyond questions of training or natural talent. Emma's performance suggested capabilities that exceeded normal human limitations. He needed to understand what they were dealing with before proceeding with advanced team integration. "Private Walsh, I need you to accompany me to headquarters for additional briefing." Emma nodded and began securing her equipment. As they walked toward the base headquarters building, Morrison struggled to formulate questions that might reveal more about her background and capabilities. "Private, your shooting demonstrates skills typically associated with special operations or advanced military training programs. Can you tell me more about your father's instruction?" "He believed in thorough preparation, Sergeant. He taught me that precision shooting requires understanding physics, mathematics, and environmental factors at a detailed level." "How long did he train you?" "Since I was 12 years old. We practiced together until he passed away last year." Morrison calculated the timeline. 6 years of intensive training with a special operations veteran could explain exceptional skills, but it didn't account for the superhuman precision and calculation speed he had witnessed. They arrived at Colonel Henderson's office, where Morrison briefed the colonel on the morning's exercises. Henderson listened with increasing interest as Morrison described Emma's performance in team coordination and moving target engagement. "Private Walsh," Henderson said when Morrison finished his report, "your capabilities appear to exceed normal training results. I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before assigning you to operational missions." Emma sat quietly, waiting for specific questions rather than volunteering information. "How would you describe your shooting abilities compared to other marksmen you've encountered?" "I focus on precision and consistency, Colonel. My father emphasized that reliable performance was more important than exceptional individual shots." Henderson exchanged glances with Morrison. Emma's answer was technically accurate but revealed nothing about her awareness of her unusual capabilities. Private Walsh, are you aware that your performance today exceeded anything in our training database? I tried to complete each exercise to the best of my ability, sir. Henderson realized they were not going to get direct answers about Emma's capabilities through normal questioning. He decided to approach the situation from a different angle. Private Walsh, I'm assigning you to advanced tactical training with the Iron Wolves. You'll participate in live-fire exercises, mission simulations, and field operations. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility? Yes, sir. After Emma left the office, Henderson turned to Morrison with a concerned expression. Sergeant, I want continuous monitoring of Private Walsh's performance. Document everything, no matter how unusual it seems. We may be dealing with someone whose capabilities have strategic implications. Morrison saluted and returned to the Iron Wolves compound, where his team was discussing the morning's events in hushed tones. He could see that Emma Walsh's presence had fundamentally changed the dynamics of his unit, raising questions that none of them were prepared to answer. The mission briefing took place at 0600 hours in the secure conference room adjacent to the Iron Wolves compound. Colonel Henderson stood before a tactical display showing aerial photography of a hostile territory where intelligence indicated enemy sniper positions threatening Allied supply convoys. Gentlemen and Private Walsh, Henderson began, we have a situation that requires immediate Iron Wolves intervention. Enemy marksmen have established positions in mountainous terrain overlooking Highway 7. 3 supply convoys have been attacked in the past week, with precision shots disabling lead vehicles and causing significant casualties. Morrison studied the terrain photographs spread across the briefing table. The enemy positions were strategically chosen, offering excellent fields of fire while providing multiple escape routes through rocky terrain that would be difficult to assault directly. Intelligence suggests we're dealing with highly trained enemy snipers using advanced equipment. Range estimates put their shooting positions between 800 and 1200 meters from the highway. Your mission is to locate, identify, and eliminate these threats. Chen raised his hand. Sir, what's our timeline? Another convoy runs this route tomorrow at 1400 hours. We cannot allow continued attacks on our supply operations. You deploy at first light, establish overwatch positions, and neutralize enemy marksmen before they can engage the convoy. Williams examined the topographical maps more closely. Colonel, this terrain provides natural concealment for enemy positions. Finding them will require systematic searching across several square kilometers of mountainous landscape. That's why you're the Iron Wolves, Staff Sergeant. This mission requires exactly the kind of specialized skills your team was trained for. Henderson turned to address Emma directly. Private Walsh, this will be your first operational deployment with the Iron Wolves. Are you prepared for live combat conditions? Yes, sir. Morrison appreciated Emma's calm response, but he was concerned about deploying an untested team member into a hostile environment. Despite her exceptional training performance, combat situations presented unpredictable challenges that could not be replicated in training exercises. Sergeant Morrison, you have tactical command. Plan your approach, coordinate with local intelligence assets, and eliminate the threat. Questions? After the briefing concluded, Morrison gathered his team in their equipment preparation area. The mission required careful planning, specialized equipment selection, and coordination among team members who would be operating in small groups across difficult terrain. All right, team. We'll establish 3 overwatch positions covering different sectors of the target area. Walsh, you're with me on the primary observation post. Williams and Chen take Sector 2. Rodriguez and Martinez cover Sector 3. Chen looked concerned. Sarge, shouldn't Walsh be paired with someone more experienced for her first mission? Morrison had considered the same question. Private Walsh demonstrated exceptional performance during training. I want to evaluate her capabilities under operational conditions. The team spent the remainder of the day preparing equipment and reviewing tactical plans. Emma worked methodically through her preparation checklist, selecting specialized ammunition, configuring her rifle for long-range engagement, and studying the terrain photographs with intense focus. Williams approached Morrison privately. Sarge, I'm still not comfortable with what we've seen from Walsh. Her abilities don't match anything in normal human parameters. Are we sure we want to deploy her into unknown combat conditions? Staff Sergeant, our mission requires the best marksman we have available. Private Walsh has demonstrated superior capabilities in every training exercise. Unless you have specific reasons to question her combat readiness, she deploys with the team. Williams nodded but remained troubled. I don't question her shooting abilities, Sarge. I question whether we understand what we're dealing with. At 0500 hours the next morning, the Iron Wolves loaded into transport helicopters for insertion into the mountainous terrain overlooking Highway 7. Emma sat quietly during the flight, checking her equipment and reviewing her notebook calculations. Morrison observed her preparation routine, noting the same methodical approach she had demonstrated during training. Her calculations appeared to account for altitude changes, atmospheric pressure variations, and wind patterns specific to the mission area. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, dropping the three teams at predetermined coordinates that provided access to their assigned overwatch positions. Morrison and Emma moved through rocky terrain toward their observation post, which offered commanding views of the highway and surrounding area. Private Walsh, Morrison said as they established their position, our primary mission is observation and threat identification. If we locate enemy marksmen, you'll provide precision fire support while I coordinate with other teams. Emma nodded and began setting up her rifle system. Her movements were efficient and quiet, showing awareness of the need for concealment in hostile territory. Within minutes, she had established a firing position that offered excellent fields of fire while maintaining natural camouflage. Morrison used his spotting scope to scan the distant terrain, looking for signs of enemy activity. The landscape was vast and complex, offering hundreds of potential sniper positions among rocky outcroppings and natural vegetation. For 2 hours, they observed without detecting any enemy presence. Morrison was beginning to wonder if intelligence reports had been inaccurate when Emma spoke quietly. Sergeant, I've identified a potential threat position at bearing 270 degrees, range approximately 950 meters. Morrison swung his spotting scope toward the indicated direction. At first, he saw nothing unusual among the rocky terrain. I don't see anything, Private. What specifically caught your attention? Unnatural shadow patterns and slight movement inconsistent with wind effects. The position offers excellent overwatch of the highway while providing concealment from casual observation. Morrison studied the area more carefully. After several minutes of detailed observation, he detected what might be artificial camouflage among the natural rock formations. Possible contact. I need visual confirmation before engaging. Emma adjusted her rifle scope and studied the distant position with intense focus. Confirmed enemy sniper position. I can see rifle barrel and partial human silhouette. Target is approximately 200 meters higher elevation, accounting for significant bullet drop compensation. Morrison continued studying the area through his spotting scope. Despite Emma's detailed description, he could not clearly identify the enemy position she claimed to have located. The distance and natural camouflage made visual confirmation extremely difficult. Private Walsh, I cannot confirm target identification from this position. We need to coordinate with other teams before engaging. Before Morrison could radio his other team members, Emma spoke urgently. Sergeant, the target is preparing to engage. I can see movement indicating weapon positioning toward the highway. Morrison quickly contacted his other teams. Iron Wolf 2 and 3, this is Iron Wolf 1. We have possible enemy contact at bearing 270, range 950 meters. Request immediate confirmation and support. Williams responded from his position. Iron Wolf 1, we cannot confirm enemy contact from our location. Terrain blocks our view of indicated coordinates. Rodriguez chimed in from the third position. Iron Wolf 1, negative contact visible from Sector 3. Morrison faced a tactical decision. Emma claimed to have identified an enemy sniper preparing to engage, but no other team members could confirm the target. Engaging based solely on one person's identification violated standard operational procedures. Private Walsh, I cannot authorize engagement without visual confirmation from multiple team members. Emma remained focused on her rifle scope. Sergeant, based on the target's positioning and preparation, I estimate 30 seconds before they engage the convoy. The convoy is currently 15 minutes from entering the kill zone. Morrison realized that if Emma was correct, waiting for additional confirmation could result in enemy success against the supply convoy. However, engaging an unconfirmed target could result in civilian casualties or friendly fire incidents. Private Walsh, you are authorized to engage only if you are absolutely certain of target identification and can guarantee no collateral damage. Emma made final adjustments to her scope settings. Target confirmed as enemy combatant in sniper position. Clear field of fire with no civilian presence. Engaging now. The shot echoed across the mountainous terrain with sharp clarity. Through his spotting scope, Morrison watched for impact signs at the indicated coordinates. For several seconds, nothing was visible in the distant terrain. Then, suddenly, a figure emerged from camouflaged positions and fell backward into view before disappearing behind rocky cover. Morrison caught only a brief glimpse, but it was enough to confirm Emma's target identification. Target hit, Morrison announced over radio. Confirmed enemy sniper eliminated. Williams responded immediately. Iron Wolf 1, confirmed target elimination. We observed muzzle flash from your position but could not see impact area. Confirmed elimination. Moving to investigate target area. Morrison and Emma carefully moved through the terrain toward the enemy position. The approach required 45 minutes of careful movement through rocky landscape, maintaining alertness for additional enemy presence. When they reached the coordinates where Emma had placed her shot, Morrison found clear evidence of enemy sniper activity. A camouflaged hide had been constructed among natural rock formations, offering excellent concealment and fields of fire toward the highway below. The enemy sniper lay motionless beside a precision rifle and advanced optical equipment. Emma's shot had struck with lethal accuracy despite the extreme range and difficult shooting conditions. Morrison examined the enemy equipment and position more carefully. The sniper had been professionally trained and equipped, confirming intelligence reports about skilled enemy marksmen. The camouflaged position would have been nearly impossible to detect without exceptional observation skills. Private Walsh, your target identification was accurate. This was definitely an enemy combatant in position to engage our convoy. Emma nodded and began securing the area for intelligence collection. Morrison was impressed by her tactical awareness and professional approach to post-engagement procedures. As they collected enemy equipment and intelligence materials, Morrison reflected on the morning's events. Emma had successfully identified and engaged an enemy sniper that no other team member had been able to detect. Her shooting had been accurate at nearly 1,000 meters under combat conditions. Radio communication from base interrupted his thoughts. Iron Wolf 1, convoy is approaching your sector. Report status. Base, this is Iron Wolf 1. Sector is secure. Enemy threat eliminated. Convoy can proceed safely. The supply convoy passed through the area without incident, protected by the Iron Wolf's successful elimination of the enemy sniper threat. Morrison felt satisfied with the mission's outcome, but he was increasingly concerned about the implications of Emma's exceptional capabilities. When the teams regrouped at the extraction point, Williams immediately approached Morrison. Sarge, I need to understand what happened out there. We heard your shot, but none of us could see the target you engaged. Morrison gestured toward Emma. Private Walsh identified and eliminated an enemy sniper positioned at extreme range with excellent camouflage. Her target identification was accurate and her engagement was successful. Chen looked skeptical. At what range? Approximately 950 meters, elevated position, camouflage target. Rodriguez whistled. That's an exceptional shot under combat conditions. Most marksmen would struggle to even identify a target at that range, much less engage successfully. Morrison watched Emma, who was quietly packing her equipment without participating in the discussion. Her calm demeanor suggested that the successful elimination of an enemy combatant was routine rather than exceptional. During the helicopter extraction flight, Morrison found himself studying Emma more carefully. Her first combat mission had been executed with professional precision that exceeded what he expected from someone with no prior operational experience. Back at base, Colonel Henderson debriefed the mission personally. Morrison provided a complete report of the enemy contact and successful engagement, emphasizing Emma's accurate target identification and precise shot placement. Private Walsh, Henderson said when Morrison finished his report, your performance during this mission was exceptional. Target identification at that range under those conditions demonstrates remarkable observational skills. Thank you, sir. Henderson studied Emma's calm expression. Private Walsh, in your assessment, what factors contributed to your successful target identification? Systematic observation, Colonel. I studied terrain patterns, shadow variations, and movement indicators until I detected anomalies that suggested human presence. How long did this observation process take? Approximately 15 minutes of detailed scanning before identifying the specific threat location. Morrison was surprised by this answer. His recollection was that Emma had identified the enemy position much more quickly than 15 minutes. Her time estimates seemed designed to make her capabilities appear more normal than they actually were. Henderson dismissed the team after completing the formal debriefing, but asked Morrison to remain for additional discussion. Sergeant Morrison, I want your honest assessment of Private Walsh's performance during this mission. Morrison considered his response carefully. Colonel, Private Walsh demonstrated capabilities that exceed anything I've seen in 12 years of training Marksman. Her target identification was faster and more accurate than should have been possible under those conditions. What do you mean by should have been possible? Sir, the enemy position was camouflaged well enough that I couldn't detect it even after Private Walsh pointed it out. The range was extreme, conditions were challenging, and she had no prior combat experience. Yet she identified and engaged the target with precision that veteran snipers would struggle to achieve. Henderson nodded slowly. Continue monitoring her performance, Sergeant. Document everything unusual. We need to understand exactly what Private Walsh's capabilities mean for our operational planning. As Morrison walked back to the Iron Wolves compound, he realized that Emma Walsh's presence on his team had fundamentally changed their mission capabilities. Her exceptional skills provided tactical advantages that could prove decisive in future operations, but they also raised questions about the nature and limits of human performance that he was not prepared to answer. 2 weeks after the successful highway protection mission, the Iron Wolves received an urgent deployment order that would test their capabilities beyond anything they had previously encountered. Intelligence had identified a high-value enemy commander conducting operations from a fortified position deep in hostile territory. The briefing room was tense as Colonel Henderson outlined the mission parameters. Gentlemen and Private Walsh, we have been tasked with eliminating General Viktor Kozlov, an enemy field commander whose tactical expertise has made him a priority target. Intelligence indicates he's established a command post in a mountain fortress that has proven impossible to assault through conventional means. Morrison studied the aerial reconnaissance photographs spread across the briefing table. The target location was a medieval fortress built into a mountainside, offering natural protection and commanding views of the surrounding valleys. Modern defensive improvements had been added to the ancient stone structure. The fortress is located approximately 1,500 meters from the nearest feasible observation positions, Henderson continued. Previous assassination attempts using conventional methods have failed due to the extreme range and heavily fortified nature of the target location. Williams examined the photographs more closely. Sir, 1,500 meters is beyond the effective range of most sniper systems. Even with perfect conditions, that distance presents significant challenges for target engagement. That's why this mission requires the Iron Wolves' specialized capabilities. Intelligence indicates that General Kozlov follows a predictable routine, appearing on the fortress walls at specific times for tactical observation of his operational area. Henderson turned to address the team directly. Your mission is to establish observation positions, confirm target identification, and eliminate General Kozlov during one of his routine appearances. The shot must be made from extreme range under field conditions that will test every aspect of your training. Emma raised her hand. Sir, what intelligence do we have about the General's specific routine and timing? Excellent question, Private Walsh. Surveillance indicates that General Kozlov appears on the eastern wall of the fortress each morning at approximately 0800 hours for 15 minutes of tactical observation. This represents our primary engagement opportunity. Morrison considered the tactical challenges. Shooting at 1,500 meters required perfect calculations for bullet drop, wind compensation, and atmospheric conditions. Even minor errors in any variable would result in mission failure and potential exposure of their position to enemy forces. Colonel, what about secondary escape routes and enemy response capabilities in the target area? Intelligence suggests limited enemy patrol activity in the mountainous terrain surrounding the fortress. However, once the shot is taken, you can expect immediate and aggressive enemy response. Extraction must be rapid and efficient. The mission preparation took 3 days of intensive planning and equipment selection. Emma spent hours calculating ballistic tables for the extreme range engagement, accounting for altitude differences, atmospheric pressure variations, and historical wind pattern data for the target area. Morrison watched her preparation with growing amazement. The mathematical calculations required for accurate shooting at 1,500 meters were extraordinarily complex, typically requiring computer assistance or extensive reference tables. Emma performed the calculations by hand, filling multiple pages with precise mathematical relationships. Private Walsh, Morrison said as he reviewed her calculations, these ballistic computations are remarkably detailed. How did you learn to perform such complex mathematical analysis? My father emphasized the importance of understanding every variable that affects bullet trajectory, Sergeant. He taught me to calculate rather than estimate whenever possible. Morrison examined her work more carefully. The calculations accounted for variables that most marksmen never considered, including Coriolis effects, air density variations, and temperature gradients that would affect bullet flight over the extended range. Williams looked over Morrison's shoulder at Emma's mathematical work. Those calculations include factors that military ballistic computers struggle to process accurately. Where did she learn to account for variables at this level of detail? Emma continued working without responding to the implied question. Morrison decided to focus on mission preparation rather than pursuing questions about her exceptional mathematical capabilities. The team deployed by helicopter to an insertion point 20 kilometers from the target area. The approach to their observation positions required 8 hours of careful movement through mountainous terrain, carrying specialized equipment and maintaining complete concealment from enemy surveillance. Emma moved through the difficult terrain with surprising ease despite her slight build. The heavy precision rifle and associated equipment that challenged larger team members seemed to cause her no difficulty. Her movement was quiet and efficient, showing awareness of tactical considerations beyond what Morrison expected from someone with limited field experience. Private Walsh, Morrison said during a rest break, your movement through this terrain is very professional. Your father's training included tactical movement and concealment? He believed that precision shooting required understanding every aspect of field operations, Sergeant. By late afternoon, the team had established 3 observation positions covering different approach angles to the target fortress. Morrison and Emma occupied the primary position, offering the best view of the eastern wall where General Kozlov was expected to appear. Through his spotting scope, Morrison could clearly see the fortress structure 1,500 meters away. The ancient stone walls were substantial, and modern defensive improvements were visible around key positions. The eastern wall where their target would appear was clearly defined against the sky. Private Walsh, what are your preliminary observations about tomorrow morning's shooting conditions? Emma was studying the target area through her rifle scope while making notes in her calculation book. Wind patterns appear consistent with intelligence reports, Sergeant. Current atmospheric pressure is stable. Temperature should provide favorable density conditions for long-range shooting. Morrison was impressed by her systematic evaluation of environmental factors. Her preparation was thorough and professional, suggesting confidence in her ability to make the challenging shot. As evening approached, Morrison coordinated with his other teams to ensure optimal observation coverage. Williams and Chen reported clear visibility from their position, while Rodriguez and Martinez confirmed good coverage of potential escape routes. Iron Wolf 1, this is Iron Wolf 2, Williams reported over radio. We have clear observation of the target area but estimate 1,600 meters to the eastern wall from our position. Extreme range for accurate engagement. Morrison acknowledged the report while noting that Emma's primary position offered slightly better range and shooting angle. If the mission required a shot from extreme distance, their position provided the best opportunity for success. That evening, as the team settled into defensive positions for overnight observation, Morrison found himself studying Emma's preparation routine. Her calculation review was methodical and detailed, suggesting complete confidence in her mathematical analysis. Private Walsh, are you confident in your ballistic calculations for tomorrow's engagement? Yes, Sergeant. I've accounted for all measurable variables that will affect bullet trajectory over the required distance. Morrison hoped her confidence was justified. The mission's success depended on exceptional accuracy under conditions that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Failure would result in mission compromise and potential enemy retaliation against Allied operations. At 0600 hours the next morning, Morrison and Emma prepared for the anticipated target appearance. Environmental conditions were favorable, with clear visibility and moderate wind conditions that matched their planning assumptions. Emma conducted final calculations based on current atmospheric readings and wind measurements. Her adjustments were minor, confirming that her preparation had accurately predicted the actual shooting conditions. "All teams, this is Iron Wolf 1, Morrison announced over radio. Target window opens in approximately 15 minutes. Maintain observation and prepare for immediate engagement authorization." At 0755 hours, movement appeared on the eastern wall of the fortress. Through his spotting scope, Morrison observed a small group of figures emerging onto the elevated walkway. One figure separated from the group and moved to the wall's edge, clearly observing the surrounding terrain. "Positive identification," Morrison announced. "Target confirmed as General Kozlov based on uniform characteristics and command behavior. Authorization granted for engagement." Emma made final adjustments to her rifle position and scope settings. Her movements were calm and deliberate despite the critical nature of the shot. Morrison watched her breathing control and trigger discipline, noting the same professional technique she had demonstrated during training. "Target acquired," Emma said quietly. "Clear field of fire confirmed. No friendly personnel in impact area." Morrison maintained observation through his spotting scope as Emma prepared for the shot. The target remained visible on the fortress wall, occasionally moving but presenting consistent opportunities for engagement. The rifle's report echoed across the mountainous landscape with sharp finality. Morrison tracked the bullet's flight time, knowing that at 1,500 meters, several seconds would pass before impact became visible. Through his spotting scope, Morrison watched the target area carefully. General Kozlov continued his observation routine for several seconds after Emma's shot, giving no indication that he was aware of the incoming bullet. Suddenly, the general staggered and fell backward from view. Other figures on the wall immediately moved toward his position, their urgent movements confirming a successful hit. "Target down," Morrison announced over radio. "Confirmed elimination. Immediate extraction authorized." The team began rapid movement toward their extraction coordinates while enemy activity increased around the fortress. Morrison could hear alarms and see increased personnel movement as enemy forces responded to their commander's elimination. During the movement to extraction, Morrison reflected on Emma's performance. Her shot at 1,500 meters under field conditions had been executed with precision that exceeded anything he had previously witnessed. The mathematical calculations, environmental analysis, and shooting execution had been flawless. "Outstanding shot, Private Walsh," Morrison said as they reached the extraction landing zone. "That was exceptional marksmanship under extremely challenging conditions." Emma nodded while securing her equipment. "Thank you, Sergeant." Williams approached Morrison as they waited for extraction helicopters. "Sarge, I observed the shot through my scope from our position. At 1,600 meters, I could barely make out the target figure. How did she achieve accurate engagement at that range?" Morrison considered Williams' question. Emma's successful elimination of General Kozlov represented shooting capabilities that pushed the boundaries of what was considered humanly possible. The precision required for accurate engagement at 1,500 meters exceeded normal military standards. Staff Sergeant Williams, Private Walsh has demonstrated exceptional capabilities throughout her service with the Iron Wolves. Today's mission's success confirms that her abilities represent significant tactical advantages for our operations. Williams nodded but remained troubled. "Sarge, I've been thinking about her performance since she joined the team. The precision, the calculation speed, the situational awareness, it all exceeds normal human parameters." Morrison understood Williams' concerns. Emma's capabilities had consistently challenged their understanding of what was possible through training and natural talent. Her performance suggested knowledge and skills that went beyond conventional military instruction. During the extraction flight, Colonel Henderson personally debriefed the mission via radio communication. Morrison provided a complete report of the successful target elimination and team performance under challenging conditions. Sergeant Morrison confirmed that the shot was made from approximately 1,500 meters under field conditions. "Confirmed, sir." Private Walsh successfully engaged and eliminated the target at extreme range with a single shot. Henderson's response was delayed, as if he was processing the implications of what Morrison had reported. "Outstanding work, Iron Wolves. Full debrief upon return to base." Back at base, Henderson conducted an extended debriefing that included detailed analysis of Emma's shooting performance. The colonel was particularly interested in her preparation methodology and calculation procedures. Private Walsh, your successful engagement at 1,500 meters represents exceptional marksmanship. Can you describe your preparation process for shots at this extreme range? Complete mathematical analysis of all variables affecting bullet trajectory, Colonel. Systematic calculation rather than estimation ensures optimal accuracy. Henderson studied Emma's calculation notes, which Morrison had provided as part of the mission documentation. The mathematical work was sophisticated and detailed, accounting for variables that most marksmen never considered. Private Walsh, these calculations include factors that typically require computer assistance. How did you learn to perform such complex ballistic analysis manually? My father emphasized the importance of understanding fundamental principles rather than relying on technological assistance, sir. Henderson exchanged glances with Morrison. Emma's answers remained technically accurate while revealing nothing about the extraordinary nature of her capabilities. After Emma left the briefing room, Henderson turned to Morrison with a serious expression. Sergeant, Private Walsh's performance has strategic implications. Her capabilities could revolutionize how we approach long-range operations. Morrison nodded. Colonel, I'm concerned that we don't fully understand what we're dealing with. Her abilities exceed anything in military training doctrine. Continue monitoring her performance, Sergeant. Document everything. We may need to consider special operational assignments that take advantage of her unique capabilities. As Morrison walked back to the Iron Wolves compound, he realized that Emma Walsh had become the team's most valuable asset while simultaneously representing their greatest mystery. Her exceptional abilities provided tactical advantages that could prove decisive in future missions, but they also raised fundamental questions about the nature and limits of human performance that none of them were prepared to answer. 3 months after General Kozlov's elimination, the Iron Wolves found themselves facing their most challenging mission yet. Intelligence agencies had identified a critical enemy weapons facility hidden in the remote mountains of hostile territory, where advanced military technology was being developed that posed significant threats to Allied operations. Colonel Henderson called an emergency briefing at 0400 hours, gathering the Iron Wolves team in the secure conference room. His expression was grave as he activated the classified briefing materials. This mission is classified at the highest levels, Henderson began. Intelligence has confirmed that enemy forces have developed advanced sniper systems with capabilities that exceed our current defensive measures. The weapons are being manufactured at a facility designated Target Omega. Morrison studied the reconnaissance photographs showing a heavily fortified industrial complex built into a mountain valley. The facility was surrounded by natural barriers and sophisticated defensive systems that made conventional assault impossible. The facility produces approximately 12 advanced sniper rifles per month, along with specialized ammunition and targeting systems. These weapons have been deployed against our forces with devastating effectiveness. Intelligence estimates that enemy marksmen using these systems have achieved successful engagements at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Williams leaned forward, studying the facility photographs. Sir, what makes these weapons so dangerous? Advanced barrel technology, specialized ammunition, and integrated computer targeting systems that compensate for environmental variables automatically. Enemy snipers using these weapons have eliminated our personnel from distances previously considered safe. Henderson activated a tactical display showing the facility's location relative to possible observation positions. Your mission is to penetrate enemy territory, establish observation positions, and eliminate key personnel responsible for weapons development. Secondary objective is destruction of manufacturing equipment to halt production. Morrison examined the tactical situation more closely. The facility was located in a deep mountain valley, protected by natural terrain that limited approach routes and observation positions. Enemy security was extensive, with multiple defensive layers and patrol activities. Colonel, what's our timeline for this operation? Intelligence indicates that a critical production meeting will occur in 72 hours. All senior development personnel will be present at the facility. This represents our optimal opportunity to eliminate key targets and disrupt operations permanently. Emma studied the facility photographs with intense focus. Sir, what range estimates do we have for effective observation positions? Minimum 1,800 meters from the closest feasible concealment. Most positions require engagement ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. This mission demands precision shooting capabilities at the absolute limits of current technology. Morrison felt a chill of understanding. The mission parameters were designed to take advantage of Emma's exceptional capabilities. Normal marksmen could not reliably engage targets at 2,000 meters, but Emma had consistently demonstrated accuracy that exceeded conventional limitations. Private Walsh, Henderson said directly, intelligence analysis suggests that this mission requires shooting capabilities beyond normal military standards. Are you prepared for engagement at extreme ranges under combat conditions? Yes, sir. Henderson studied Emma's calm response. Private Walsh, successful completion of this mission could prevent enemy deployment of weapons that threaten Allied personnel throughout the theater. The strategic importance cannot be overstated. The mission preparation required extensive planning and specialized equipment selection. Emma spent 2 days developing ballistic calculations for shots at ranges up to 2,200 meters, accounting for the complex atmospheric conditions created by the mountain valley environment. Morrison watched her mathematical work with continued amazement. The calculations filled dozens of pages with precise relationships between bullet trajectory, environmental factors, and target parameters. Her analysis included variables that most ballistic computers struggle to process accurately. Private Walsh, these calculations assume perfect execution under ideal conditions. Combat situations rarely provide such favorable circumstances. Emma looked up from her mathematical work. I've included contingency calculations for various environmental scenarios, Sergeant. The primary calculations represent optimal conditions, but alternative solutions account for likely variations. Morrison examined her contingency planning. Emma had calculated ballistic solutions for different wind conditions, temperature variations, and atmospheric pressure changes. Her preparation was thorough enough to handle unexpected environmental factors that could arise during the mission. Williams approached Morrison privately. Sarge, I need to express serious concerns about this mission. The shooting requirements exceed anything attempted in modern military operations. We're asking Walsh to perform beyond the limits of human capability. Morrison understood Williams' concerns, but he was also aware that Emma had consistently exceeded those supposed limits. Staff Sergeant, Private Walsh has demonstrated exceptional capabilities throughout her service with the Iron Wolves. If anyone can succeed at this mission, it's her. That's exactly what worries me, Sarge. Her abilities don't match anything in normal human parameters. What happens if something goes wrong at those extreme ranges? We'll be operating in hostile territory with limited support options. Morrison considered Williams' points carefully. The mission did represent unprecedented challenges, and Emma's exceptional capabilities were the primary reason Command believed success was possible. However, her consistent performance suggested that relying on her abilities was tactically sound. The team deployed via long-range helicopter insertion to a remote location 50 kilometers from the target facility. The approach required 2 days of careful movement through hostile territory, carrying specialized equipment while avoiding enemy patrols and surveillance systems. Emma moved through the difficult mountain terrain with the same ease she had demonstrated during previous missions. Her tactical awareness and movement discipline remained exceptional despite the challenging environment and critical mission parameters. On the second day of movement, the team established observation positions overlooking the target facility. Morrison's primary position with Emma offered clear visibility of the facility complex from a range of 2,100 meters. The distance was extreme, testing the absolute limits of precision shooting technology. Through his spotting scope, Morrison could see the industrial buildings and defensive positions clearly. Personnel movement was visible around key structures, confirming that the facility was actively operational. The target building where the critical meeting would occur was easily identifiable from intelligence photographs. Private Walsh, initial assessment of shooting conditions? Emma was conducting detailed environmental analysis using specialized instruments. Her measurements included atmospheric pressure, temperature gradients, and wind patterns that would affect bullet trajectory over the extreme range. Conditions are within acceptable parameters, Sergeant. The mountain valley creates complex wind patterns, but they appear predictable and consistent with my calculations. Morrison coordinated with his other teams to ensure optimal coverage of the facility. Williams and Chen were positioned to provide overwatch and security, while Rodriguez and Martinez covered potential escape routes and provided communications relay. That evening, as they prepared for the next morning's operation, Morrison found himself studying Emma's preparation routine one final time. Her confidence appeared unshaken by the unprecedented challenges of the mission. "Private Walsh, you understand that tomorrow's shots will be at ranges that have never been successfully attempted under combat conditions?" "I understand the requirements, Sergeant. My calculations indicate that accurate engagement is possible if execution matches mathematical projections." Morrison hoped her confidence was justified. Mission success depended entirely on her ability to achieve precision that exceeded documented human performance under conditions that provided no room for error. At 0600 hours the next morning, facility personnel began arriving for the critical production meeting. Through his spotting scope, Morrison observed increased security activity and the arrival of vehicles carrying what appeared to be senior personnel. Emma conducted final environmental measurements and made minor adjustments to her ballistic calculations based on current conditions. Her preparation was methodical and thorough, suggesting complete confidence in her analysis. "All teams, this is Iron Wolf 1, Morrison announced over radio. Target personnel are arriving at the facility. Prepare for engagement authorization within the next 30 minutes. At 0830 hours, intelligence confirmed that all primary targets had assembled in the designated meeting facility." Morrison could see increased security presence around the building, confirming the importance of the gathering. "Target confirmation received," Morrison announced. "All primary personnel are present in the target building. Authorization granted for engagement." Emma made final adjustments to her rifle position and scope settings. The target building was clearly visible 2,100 meters away, but individual personnel were difficult to distinguish at that extreme range. Morrison maintained observation through his spotting scope as Emma prepared for the first shot. Intelligence had provided detailed facility layouts and meeting room locations, allowing them to target specific areas where key personnel would be gathered. "First target acquired," Emma said quietly. "Clear field of fire confirmed through building window. Key personnel visible in meeting room." The rifle's report echoed across the mountain valley with decisive finality. Morrison tracked the bullet's extended flight time, knowing that at 2,100 meters, several seconds would pass before impact became visible. Through his spotting scope, Morrison watched the target building carefully. Initial impact was not immediately visible due to the extreme range and building structure, but sudden activity around the facility confirmed successful engagement. "Target hit confirmed," Morrison announced. "Immediate enemy response observed. Continue engagement of secondary targets." Emma smoothly worked her rifle's bolt action and acquired the second target. Her movements remained calm and controlled despite the increasing enemy activity around the facility. Security personnel were responding to the first shot, but they had not yet identified the source direction. The second shot followed within 30 seconds. Again, Morrison observed increased emergency activity around the target building, confirming another successful hit. Emma's precision at 2,100 meters was maintaining the same accuracy she had demonstrated at shorter ranges. 2 targets eliminated, Morrison reported. Continuing engagement sequence. Emma engaged a third target before enemy security forces began coordinated response procedures. Her final shot was followed by immediate preparation for extraction, as enemy forces would soon identify their general position and begin counter-sniper operations. "Mission complete," Morrison announced over radio. "All primary targets engaged successfully. Immediate extraction authorized." The team began rapid movement toward extraction coordinates while enemy forces mobilized throughout the valley below. Morrison could see increased patrol activity and the deployment of security teams toward their general area. During the extraction movement, Morrison reflected on Emma's performance during the mission. Her precision shooting at 2,100 meters under combat conditions represented capabilities that redefined what was possible in military operations. The successful elimination of all targets had been accomplished with mathematical precision that seemed to transcend human limitations. "Outstanding work, Private Walsh," Morrison said as they reached the extraction landing zone. "Your shooting today was beyond anything I've witnessed in military service." Emma nodded while securing her equipment. "Thank you, Sergeant." As they waited for extraction helicopters, Williams approached Morrison with a troubled expression. "Sarge, what we witnessed today wasn't human performance. Nobody shoots like that at those ranges under those conditions." Morrison understood Williams' concerns, but he was also aware that Emma's capabilities had proven decisive in critical missions. Staff Sergeant Private Walsh has consistently demonstrated exceptional abilities. Today's success confirms that her capabilities represent significant strategic advantages. That's what worries me, Sarge. Her abilities are so far beyond normal parameters that I'm not sure we're dealing with normal military training anymore. During the extraction flight, Colonel Henderson personally communicated with the team via secure radio. Morrison provided a complete mission report, emphasizing Emma's successful elimination of all primary targets at extreme range. Sergeant Morrison confirmed that all engagements were successful at approximately 2,100 meters under field conditions. Confirmed, sir. Private Walsh successfully eliminated 3 high-value targets at extreme range with precision shooting that exceeded all expectations. Henderson's response suggested he was processing the strategic implications of what Morrison had reported. Outstanding work, Iron Wolves. This mission's success will have significant impact on enemy capabilities. Back at base, Henderson conducted the most extensive debriefing Emma had yet experienced. The colonel was clearly interested in understanding the full scope of her capabilities and their implications for future operations. Private Walsh, your performance during this mission represents shooting capabilities that redefine what we consider possible. Can you explain how you achieve such precision at extreme ranges? Complete mathematical analysis and systematic execution, Colonel. Understanding every variable that affects bullet trajectory allows for accurate predictions and consistent results. Henderson studied Emma carefully. Private Walsh, your capabilities suggest training and knowledge beyond conventional military instruction. Can you provide more details about your background and preparation? My father believed that precision shooting required complete understanding of fundamental principles, sir. He taught me to analyze every factor systematically rather than relying on approximation or guesswork. Henderson exchanged glances with Morrison. Emma's answers remained technically accurate while providing no real insight into the extraordinary nature of her abilities. After Emma left the briefing room, Henderson turned to Morrison with a serious expression. Sergeant, Private Walsh's capabilities have strategic implications that extend beyond normal military operations. We need to consider how to best utilize her abilities while protecting operational security. Morrison nodded. Colonel, I recommend continued integration with the Iron Wolves while monitoring for any additional developments in her capabilities. Agreed. However, I want you to understand that Private Walsh may represent capabilities that have significance beyond our current understanding. Document everything, and be prepared for special operational assignments that may require her unique abilities. As Morrison walked back to the Iron Wolves compound, he realized that Emma Walsh had become not just the team's most valuable asset, but possibly one of the most strategically important individuals in military service. Her exceptional capabilities provided tactical advantages that could prove decisive in critical operations, but they also represented mysteries about human potential that challenged everything he thought he understood about the limits of training and natural ability. The Iron Wolves had claimed that no one could hit the impossible shots, but Emma Walsh had proven that impossible was simply another variable to be calculated and overcome through precision, preparation, and capabilities that transcended normal human limitations. Her quiet confidence and mathematical approach to precision shooting had redefined what their elite team considered possible, and Morrison suspected that they had only begun to understand the true scope of her remarkable abilities.